Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering One Piece, episodes 619 through 621. Running Wild, Invincible General Frankie, and A Critical Situation, Punk Hazard Explodes. And lastly, Capture Caesar, General Cannon Blasts. In these episodes, it turns out that Trafalgar Law pulled a fast one with Smoker's heart. And normally that would sound almost romantic, but it's just murder, really. Which is fine, frankly. I don't even have a problem with it. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Michael for commissioning this episode. Michael, if you're listening, thank you very much, sir. Appreciate you a lot. These episodes were wild. I was so unprepared, you guys, for how much Doflamingo was going to end up being directly involved in things here. I think that I just expected what we were doing was setting up Doflamingo as eventually going to be involved down the road. So to have him actually flying there by the end of these 3 episodes, like irritated that he has to take matters into his own hands, I truly did not see that coming. And okay. I'm going to get real with you guys for a second. So, Rashawn and I, she and I have started covering Supernatural. And there is an episode, I think maybe the first actual coverage episode, not the one where she is pitching that we should cover it, where she mentions how often men don't seem to really understand what is a turn on for women. And that a lot of times we are more fucked up than guys really think we are capable of being. Like, there's this sort of stereotype that men are the depraved perverts and that we are the ones who fantasize about being like a princess in a gauzy white gown in the forest, rescued by a handsome prince. And I think recently, as the rising of dark smut has really begun to take over book talk, we're starting to get more of a real picture of what a lot of women, and I'm saying a lot, not all, of women are into. And I bring all of this up to explain, to preface my reaction to something that was deeply, deeply inappropriate. Guys, when Doflamingo is on the phone, so to speak, transponder, snail, phone, whatever, same thing, with Monet, and he says, "Die for me, Monet," it did something to me. I don't know what it was. If it was the voice, if it was the delivery, the way he said it, if it was the gentleness of it, if it was how, if you replaced the very first word with the word come, it could be an entirely different scenario. I can't tell you exactly what it was, but I have never had that reaction to anything on One Piece ever. And I kind of hope I never do again, if I'm being honest. And Doflamingo has done nothing for me. Y'all know that I have been pretty loyal to smoker, crocodile, I think I'm trying to have to like back up and like revisit Doflamingo a little bit, y'all. I don't know. I think this might be something. We'll have to see. Because you guys know that, like, when the big announcement was like, oh, Doflamingo's at the root of this, I was just like, so? Who cares? It just did not hit the way that evidently it hit other people. Um, and now I'm sort of like, well, maybe there is room for that to happen after all. Um, Seraphim says that it's kind of funny to hear, given another reactor I'm watching is a few dozen eps ahead of you and is also falling hard for Dofi. I can't believe he's called Dofi for short, but that makes sense. In a I know he's evil, but way. Yeah. And like this is the thing with dark smut is oftentimes there is he's a bad man, but also there's the stereotype that like women go for bad boys, and the thing is women can be turned on by bad boys. That is not the same as we go for bad boys, but it's just bad boys are like our version of the like men go for bimbos thing, right? Where it's like men might be very into a bimbo. Like, damn, she looked fine. I would tap that. But, like, are they more likely to actually be really into her? Who needs to be seen? But bad boys, obviously, there's different types, there's different levels, there's different everything. So, anyway, let's get back to the beginning of these 3 episodes. So, first, we have the fight between Baby Five, Buffalo, and Frankie. And I just want to say that I had totally forgotten the fact that Baby Five can just transform into any kind of weapon, which is truly some wild shit. I am very into it. Like, for the record, I love this power. I think this is super fun, and I enjoyed I enjoyed not only the transformations themselves, but also how weirdly they decided to animate them. Like, instead of having it be, I'm just going to transform her arm into a gun, it often was, I am going to transform the upper half of her body into a gun so that she is basically like a barrel on legs, which is a choice. It sure is. Um, but I remember her being able to do this when she was like coming at Doflamingo himself by the pool, and I had just like clean forgotten it. So this is a pretty dope ability, and eventually, like Frankie has to be impressed because she manages to penetrate the armor. Although he does compare it to I think he says something like a praying mantis trying to poke a hole in a battleship, something like that, to just give like you know, a general vibe of how unlikely it is that she succeed. Um, and her and Buffalo, I'm not really. I kind of like him, to be honest. He caught me by surprise because so often the goons, like the sidekick goons, are really, I don't want to even say boring because that's not right. They're not boring, but they can be a little bit one note, I suppose is really what I want to say. That there's not a huge variety in personality exactly. They seem to be the same sort of level of like posturing toughness and uh just overall a sense of like, I am gonna talk a lot of shit. I'm loyal to my boss. I have a, cold blooded streak that is very like, kind of fucked up. And there's not a lot of surprises packed in. And I can't tell if what I am liking about him is really due to him or if it is due to his interactions with Baby Five, because he is so amusingly frustrated with her. Like every time that she brings up a thing and it's some guy that she got involved with in the past, he is just so irritated on her behalf and just keeps being like, that was clearly a scam. And at one point she is remembering a gun that this man offered her, and the guy said something like, anybody who owns this weapon is sure to be a happy life, and if you buy this from me you will make me a happy man. And she does this sort of thing that Boa does, where she backs into an arch. But when Boa does it, it's because she's literally like looking down her nose at you. And when Baby Five does it, apparently it's because she is just feeling so much that she can't stand upright anymore, is really the way it feels to me. Um, so I guess I can't remember what happens right after that, because I think that she just like imitates the gun that he showed her. I guess she must have bought it even though she can transform into a gun, which is wild shit. Girl, get a hold of yourself. But anyway, but yeah, that like memory, it's sort of done in this way where she remembers this, and then when we come out of the memory, the way that Buffalo replies to her, it implies that he like saw the memory in her head, which is very funny because he just says out of nowhere that was clearly a scam. But yeah, your girl, she doesn't know what a scam means. She is just on 100% sincerity for everybody all the time. And this is the sort of thing that I could definitely see being really tiresome after a point, but I have to admit that right now I still find it kind of amusing. It's sort of like she is the a female version of Sanji, except instead of it being about sexual attraction, it's about their like flattery of her, like they're convincing her that I need you, that kind of thing. And the fact that that is her weak point is sort of fascinating. Honestly, like I it just this is just a thing that I think is, there's a lot of room to do something sort of interesting here, and I'm not sure we will, but I am here for it. Just, for the record. Um so anyway, she she sees Frankie, and at first she says like, I thought that he was a pacifista, and later on she completely unleashes on him. And when she steps back and sees that he is still okay, she's like, okay, what the fuck is this guy? Because a pacifista would have been laid out by that, and he is fine. I literally did not even dent this guy. So I am like, it didn't occur to me that he could be mistaken for a pacifista, and he doesn't really look like one, really, but I could see the comparison, and I was like, I wonder if anybody else is going to make that mistake as well. That comparison makes sense when I stop and think about it. So the two of them are just kind of going nuts on Frankie on the shore, and like I said, nothing really makes much of a impression on him until finally she does, I think it's like a flamethrower thing. And that seems to be the one that really hits. And Buffalo manages to use his fanning power to increase the heat of the flames. And Frankie, he's trapped inside a giant metal suit. So, yeah, it definitely is not feeling great in there for him. And I was sort of glad that there was a kryptonite, so to speak. Excuse me, because I do feel like the the idea of him being totally impervious to absolutely everything, he's got to have some sort of weak point, And it being heat is actually a little bit more interesting than what I was expecting, because I really did think it was going to come down to a kind of like penetrating weapon. And it turns out that when she does like penetrate, it doesn't matter, because that doesn't really do anything to him. You know, the heat is really the thing that starts to get to him. But we're going to jump over to the kids and Nami, etc. They are all like together, realizing that in order to get out of here, there is going to be a lot of obstacles in their way. Um, they have found this, like, I don't know what the word is for this. The what is it? The it what are those things that you like sit in and they roll along a track, like a cart, I guess? But you know what I'm talking about, where it's like in a mine, and it's sort of like that. But they're all standing around and they're looking at this door that's closing before their eyes, while this cart is full of children and also Brownbeard and everything. And Law is like, "What the fuck are you guys standing around for?" And Luffy says, "But we're not all here yet. I'm waiting for the rest of my crew. Like, Mocha's not here, Chopper's not here." And also Tashigi points out that there's some of their Marines that are not accounted for either. And Law, you know, I don't dislike Law, but he is certainly a survivor. This is a guy who is going to try and make it himself, and everybody else is just kind of fend for themselves. And, you know, there are times where I really don't begrudge that. Here is one time where deciding to just fucking run, I would even understand it, but I can't really respect it. You know, like, so I love the fact that he clearly doesn't really know who he's dealing with Luffy, and when Luffy is just like, what do you mean, what am I doing? I'm waiting for my people, because I'm not an asshole. It's just such a foregone conclusion to Luffy that you fucking wait for them. And I keep enjoying how Law just is learning over and over again who he's decided to work with. This dude wasn't ready. He really thought, bro, you needed to, like, you had 2 years. You should have wandered around and like asked people about Luffy's personality a little bit and gotten a teensy bit more prepped for who he is, because he was very much expecting a person who is more serious than what he is getting. And I think that a lot of people have made this mistake. Seraphim says a mine cart. Is that all it's called? Just a mine cart? It probably is. Yeah, you're probably right. Um, but anyway, so let's jump over to Usopp, who he is with all the guys still in that control room. And he realizes, after sort of like rallying them, that he never asked for the Sea Prism Stone. What do you call them? The handcuffs. And it turns out every single one of them gets a pair of these, which is truly bananas. And I actually am kind of hoping that our crew holds on to some of these, because they could come in very handy eventually. There comes later on, and I'm just going to jump on and talk about it, a point where Usopp uses these in one of his, like, I keep wanting to say boomerang. What is the thing where you pull it back and you let go? But he's got a bunch of rocks, and of course, those just like slingshot. He sails them through. I actually really like the way this works, because, of course, they go through Caesar at first because Caesar is made of gas. But Caesar, because he is made of gas and because these things aren't doing anything to him, they lull him into this sense of security so that he is unprepared for something that actually does hit a second later. Because it turns out that mixed in with all of that are the Sea Prism Stone handcuffs, which grip around him and take him down. And I was truly unprepared for that, you guys. I really didn't see it coming, and I felt very silly, because he has been after these fucking things for like 6 episodes in a row now, like longer than that. And I didn't even really I will admit actually that when he stops here in this scene and is sort of like, oh yeah, right, I forgot to get the sea prism stone handcuffs. There was very much a voice in my head going, now? Like, what's the point of getting them now? I was not with it at all. I was not thinking clearly. Because if I had stopped to consider for one moment that we still have Caesar out there running around, then I would have understood why we still fucking need these things. Of course we do. But I was just not like, I wasn't considering everything, and I was like just not thinking through what his skill set is and his being Usopp's, because my idea was that whoever, like, he's getting these sea prism stone cuffs, but he is getting them on behalf of somebody else for them to use them. And honestly, that's a little disrespectful for me to be like, oh, whatever Usopp's getting, Usopp's not the one who's going to do anything with it because Usopp's nothing. Like, low key, that's sort of the way I was moving about this. So when he does that surprise thing and sends them flying and manages to get Caesar with that, I cheered out loud. I was just like, nice one. Okay, yes, this is what I'm talking about. I really enjoyed that little surprise. So anyway, and also here when Usopp asks for them, he does it as an afterthought because they're almost about like to leave this room, and he just stops and is like, fuck, I forgot to even ask about them. Does anybody by any chance know where I could find? And these dudes all pull out like, oh yeah, I have some, we all have a pair. And I like this moment a lot where he just stops and goes, well, look at that. Yeah, never be afraid to ask for help, everybody. Which is it's a great lesson, but also Usopp isn't the one who should be teaching it, because that's all he ever does is ask for help, because this boy, well, bless him, but he does not do a whole lot without asking somebody else to do it first, if I'm being honest. Um so okay, we are still with the majority of the Straw Hat crew spends a lot of this episode standing stock still and watching the doorways close and worrying because the ceiling seems to be caving in. And we finally get a moment when it's almost closed where we hear Chopper shouting Luffy's name, and you see like the shadow of them coming out of the smoke, and the like fog of this poison gas is behind them. Um, and they manage to get through just barely before the door closes. So now it's time to get up on this cart, and I say a mining cart, but those are traditionally meant to only carry like two people, and this thing carries like 75 to 100 people. So we are dealing with a very different thing. Um so this is when we get the phone call from Monet to Doflamingo. And she is explaining to him about how everything has gone to shit. He tells her that we've got baby five out there on the job and that they should probably be able to pick up uh oh my god, Caesar, and despite everything having gone left, but also that Virgo has been defeated. So like, things have just kind of fallen apart, but there is the bright spot of still having Caesar. And she is clearly in bad shape and is like, well, that's good to hear. And I really, I was so confused, you guys. And I knew that it couldn't be what it looked like. But Caesar, during this episode, is just starting to wake up from having been passed out when Luffy kicked him to the edge of the dock, I guess is what it's called. And the way in which this like, he pulls out the heart, and I genuinely do not remember this moment. So please forgive me, guys, but I'm sure that we saw it and I just don't remember it. But we get a flashback a little bit later on from Law's perspective of the moment when he gives the heart to Caesar after allegedly cutting it out of, well, I say allegedly, he did cut it out of Smoker's chest, but he lets Caesar believe that that is Smoker's heart, and he pulls a fast one and actually gives him the heart of Monet, because remember, he exchanged his heart with Monet's heart as the like insurance for staying loyal to Caesar. And I didn't remember him handing over Smoker's heart at all. So I'm watching Caesar like holding the knife over this heart, and I genuinely wasn't sure what to think because I knew it was unlikely that Caesar was going to die. Or not Caesar, that Smoker was going to die. Honestly, nobody ever really dies, but it does seem like maybe Monet actually died. So I don't know how much to believe that, but she is in that room with that button and she's talking to Doflamingo about how if he is willing to lose one uh tanker full of SAD, if he's willing to sacrifice it, that she will push this button. And she just wanted to check with him first, basically. And this is when he says, "Die for me, Monet, and take all of them with you." And I was watching this and I was like, all right, here's two things that I genuinely don't know how we're going to get out of. Her with this button. There's nobody in the building. We just saw all of our friends fucking bail. The only way that I could see her being stopped was that, well, they're still in the building, but they're leaving. Like nobody's in her vicinity. The only thing I could consider was maybe Virgo somehow. Like he is still in the building, I'm assuming. And perhaps if he is nearby and seeing that she is about to take this whole fucking place down, he decides to like put his foot down and put a stop to it. Um, I don't know. Like that's the only thing that I could really conceive of stopping this. And then Caesar with that heart. So we had two things that I was truly like, oh shit. What is this? What do we do now? Like I was so floored by it and I couldn't find a way out. And you know, the way that this show works, inevitably, her pressing this button gets drawn the fuck out so bad. We have her slowly opening this thing and then lifting her wings and closing her eyes and taking this deep breath. And then she pulls like the snow out of the air and it's like her bending back, letting the snow cover her. And then we cut from her to, um, oh my God, to Caesar, who is like talking about how he can't wait to stab Smoker's heart. And he's imagining the way that everybody is going to react when they realize that Smoker is starting to die for like out of nowhere, that they're all going to be so frightened and unsure. And so, you know, we're really chewing the scenery here. We've got a lot and I'm starting to be like, okay, guys, let's get this on the road because I also, like I said, didn't have a good explanation for how this was working, how we were going to get out of it. So I was also just deeply curious and starting to get pretty impatient. And we cut briefly over to as Caesar is saying, let's see, where is it? I think it's Caesar saying, "I'll get my revenge on you, Smoker." We cut over to Virgo, who is still like his head is in two halves, and they almost seem to be like his parts all seem to be stuck on the railing in the room that they had been fighting in. Now, I didn't remember them being positioned like this. And what I'm trying to figure out is whether or not this is something that happened because of Law, or if this is something that Law, like, he dropped his parts all over, and this dude is just beginning to pull them together because he is, um, he doesn't have a lot of means to manipulate his body parts when they're all split up. So he's using the railing to draw his pieces together, potentially. I don't know. I'm like, I know that that sounds weird. I'm trying to find a way to explain this, but I feel like I said it. But yeah, the railing thing just kind of caught me off guard, and it's not like he's moving in that scene. We are just seeing his pieces of his face. Oh wait, he does smile there just for a moment. When he hears Doflamingo say, "Thank you, old friend. I'm sorry it had to end this way. Thank you for all those years of service." So that's interesting that Vergo smiles when he hears this, because he doesn't seem worried at all that he's going to die. So he must not be going to die. Or he knows that Caesar has the wrong heart or something. I don't know. But suffice to say, um, the she's still you guys, I put I have the episode playing in the background when I record so that I can like see things and read the dialogue verbatim and everything like that. And this bitch is still here in this like back bend with her eyes closed, like she's having an orgasm about to press this button. Like, this has just been going on for so very long. So finally she says, "Farewell, young master, though I won't be around to see it. I know you'll become king of the pirates." And she says this, her eyes finally open, her wing goes over to press the button, and we see her wing actually seem to touch it. And as she's like pressing it, we get a quick flash of all the characters and all of their faces. And then there is this huge explosion. But apparently not. I'm confused by this. Is this supposed to be like it was only a partial explosion? Like, exactly how does this? So anyway, what we find out is that when Caesar stabbed the heart that he thought was Smoker's, he actually stabbed Monet's heart. So when we start the second episode, she still has not yet pressed the button. We have to back it up again, right? Oh my God. So much of this. So much of this. Oh, and I forgot to mention that Momonosuke has found his dad and is very, very upset because he has turned to stone and is crying over him. He'll be fine. I have no doubt we will find a way to fix this. Um, so let's see. You guys, I'm 7 minutes into the second episode, and she still hasn't pressed the button. We still have her in a backbend here. She starts enumerating everyone, and even you poor children. This is where you will die, here with me. Oh my God, girl, get to the point. So she pushes the button, and we have again this flash of the fire that would be following everybody down the corridor as they are fleeing because they're on this what do you call it? Cart thing. We go to her and the like huge flash of bright white light and her shaking and trembling as the whole place caves in around her. And then all of a sudden it cuts. Her eyes are wide. She is sweating. She's staring at the button and her like wingtip is shaking, poised over the button. And she puts a hand to her chest and collapses without having pressed it. And I will tell you what, kids, I felt like such a ding dong because I didn't realize what was happening here. I genuinely didn't get it. Like, I had to have it spoon fed to me. So then we go to Law, who very calmly says, "Oh, that must have come from building D. That's the sad manufacturing room." And he seems unbothered by this. She's still there. Adios, smoker. See you in hell. As Caesar Clown like pushes that weird stone knife into the heart that is in front of him, and then we cut back to Monet, and that was when I started to finally realize, oh my God, he has the wrong heart. What a goober. And she whispers, "I'm sorry," but the transponder snail does not pick it up. So we have got Doflamingo for a while sitting there not knowing what is going on. At first he thinks that she's just not answering him, and eventually it becomes clear that shit did not go according to plan. But it takes a while before he can really be sure that things haven't happened. Um so then we get the moment with Law explaining to Smoker and giving Smoker his he had already given Smoker his heart back. That's part of the thing, is like when you see that Caesar is about to stab the heart, when we cut to Smoker at one point, we get a zero in on his chest and you can see that it is complete. That heart isn't missing. So it was very much a kind of moment, and then you quickly figure out, like, oh, then what does that mean? But not as quickly as you might have expected to figure it out. Not as quickly. That's all I'm saying, is I'm not smart. Ah, Seraphim says, "Yeah, this is the point where the anime really started padding scenes out. Yeah, this bitch took forever. It's meant to be her imagining what the explosion would be like or something for the sake of drama. Not even sure if this was in the manga or if it was just the anime being the anime." Yeah, it's really confusing. It was really confusing to me, you guys, because like the thing about showing somebody imagining something versus the thing actually happening is there is usually a lot more of an indicator when something turns out to have been a dream or a daydream, or this is what was about to happen if somebody didn't step in, like that sort of thing always has a look to it when it's on film, where it's either filmed in such a color scale or in some way that sort of makes it seem like something is off here, or you just have a like an undoing that is really really obvious to sort of point out with no ambiguity at all, "Oh no, that didn't happen, LOL, we got you." There's often that sort of feeling to it of like, "Ha ha, you fell for it." And the way that we cut back to reality is almost exaggerated to really let us know that did not happen, you dodo bird. And we don't get that kind of like f- sort of vibe to her imaginings here. The way that she is thinking about it feels like the camera just pulling away and showing us what's going on. The color scheme doesn't change. Everybody looks like they normally look. The whole thing is just really similar, and it's like you can't really differentiate it from anything else. So it just, to me, I kept getting really confused. And then, like, to top it off, it's not even, it seems like that the whole thing was just her imagination. It seems like there was a small explosion, right? because that's what Law says that must have come from building D. So I'm not sure how she managed to like cause a small explosion but not the whole facility explosion. Like what it was that she did that made it go off like but only part way. So it was just like mixed together. It just really felt like we're getting a mix of something that's real with something that is not, and the acknowledgement of the thing that I thought was also fake by a character that is, you know, telling me no, that did really happen. So the whole thing felt, it was a bit of a shame actually, because I felt like the idea of her choosing to die on behalf of Doflamingo and sacrifice herself in order to do this, like take to make this massive statement and sacrifice. I kind of liked this actually in concept, and it just got so muddled after all was said and done that I didn't really, I felt like the fact that the giant explosion doesn't seem to quite happen the way that it did, it was almost confusing, the fact that her heart had been stabbed and whether it was what I thought it was either. Like it just started to make everything sort of blend together in a wait, which part of this is real then, if that makes sense. Um So yeah, I liked what we were doing here, but I felt like we could have done a lot more and made it a lot more clear. Even with the padding, I think that there is a way to pull this off. It's just kind of interesting to me with the way that the anime works, and evidently the way a lot of anime works. It's interesting to me how much of the time I feel like a thing being padded isn't exactly the problem. It's just that they pad it in the laziest way imaginable. And I have to imagine it's purely due to budgeting, right? Because the padding that I am thinking up when I'm talking to you guys, it involves more script being written. It involves different animation being thrown into things to, like, whatever, explain, or dialogue or whatever. And I guess that's really what the problem is that when you're padding, you're trying to just reuse footage, and that is by its nature going to be much more difficult to make seem like a distinct event. So unless, like, it just seems though so often this show is like a voiceover of somebody recounting a thing in the past over footage that we have already seen. As much as I am over here trying to like explain away why the kinds of padding I would prefer aren't as possible, as I'm saying it, I'm really kind of feeling like no, but it is still possible though. All you would have to do is write it in to a voiceover over some of the reused footage, and you could still have there be more of an explanation on another thing. And maybe it wouldn't be as satisfying as seeing that thing they're explaining actually animated, but it would certainly be more interesting than just watching like music and repeat footage over and over again, right? I think. So, anyway, all that to say, this sequence was almost good, but it just missed because I found that to be very muddled. Um, so this is when the cart is like heading out, and we see that there is all of this gas ahead. I really like the moment where Zoro is looking at it and is like, so should I like cut it, or, and I couldn't remember. I know that there is something that happens when it's still smiley, and he's like trying to cut the gas when it's just smiley and it does something else. I can't remember what happens though. And Law This is very funny to me. He says something like, um, does anybody have wind powers here? Because we could just push the gas out of our way as we come out, and then we would be fine. And everybody around him is like, do you really think that we just have somebody that has those powers like with us by coincidence? And then Nami raises her hand and is like, oh, wind power? Yeah, I can do that. And everybody's like, are you serious? That was funny. I did really, really like that. Also, you guys know that I am into any time Nami gets to use her ability. I really wish we utilized this a little bit more. And the whole way that she manages to like work this is quite fun. Um so let's see. I'm trying to. Okay, yeah, here's the part at the very end of the second episode is when the little girl is trying to find Doflamingo, and he has taken off apparently without telling anybody on his own crew. That's what he's done. So he has left and just flown off on his own. And I love that he is still in contact with Buffalo and Baby Five. And he says, this is so funny to me because the way he says this, it's like obviously the two of them are quite distracted right now, right? So I understand that this wouldn't quite hit, but he is like, so you guys are safe? And they're like, yeah, we are. And of course, they take him asking if they're safe as like, hey guys, I'm worried about you. Which I don't blame them for taking it that way. Usually, when somebody says, are you safe? That's what they mean. But then he follows it up with, like, so the island isn't just a pile of like smoking rubble. And it's very clear from his tone of voice that he is disappointed. And also, the camera is on his face and he is frowning. And I was just like giggling to myself because again, they're distracted so they don't notice. But basically, what he is saying is, it's a bummer you guys are still alive. But they don't notice. They do not notice. I just found that very funny because this dude is so obvious about how disposable they are. And you know what? These guys are so bonkers that I can't even tell if it would bother them because it's not like with Caesar, he pretended that he cared about his people in a real way so that it was a true shock to them when it turned out he didn't give a fuck and saw them as test subjects, right? And I don't know if Doflamingo has made his people feel like they are super valuable or if they understand that they're just sort of like pieces in this puzzle and that he will sacrifice them at any point. Because sometimes you would think people would not be okay with that, but it will turn out that they very much are actually because there's like a cult of personality going on. And I think that's the part that I'm like expecting for them to feel a bit of a way about him just saying that they are disposable. And I don't know the situation. Maybe they know they are already and it doesn't matter to hear it actually. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway. So, um let's see. Oh god, I forgot about this bit with Sanji. Uh because there's um let's see. Before we get outside, even if we do, there's a gas. Can you seriously conjure up wind? And Sanji just yells, if you doubt Nami, I got one thing to say. Get off right now. Well, anyone? Maybe you? And one of the dudes just says, bro, chill out. Ah, this is the Sanji I prefer. When he is fiercely like defensive of them and rather than just being like a creep with a bloody nose. This is the Sanji I'm interested in. So yeah, we are hurtling towards the exit and I love Luffy turning to her and saying, "We know you got this." Usopp contributing, "You're pretty much our only hope at this point." And then we get the camera shot from below of Nami, who is, by the way, still in a bikini top, and it's just titties, titties, titties all goddamn day long. Christ's sake. Um, so let's see. I'm trying to find the spot. Oh yeah, Frankie. In the meantime, I'm going to give you a taste of the ultimate secret weapon. Don't tell anybody else though, because it's secret. And he calls it the land-based portable Gaon cannon. It's Gaon. I can't remember how he pronounces it, but it's like these two things come out of his hands, and he puts his hands together to get it working. And he says the working title is, and he starts to create this like lightning stream before it focuses into more of, I don't want to say a laser because it's not that focused, but he says general cannon, which is just not really a good name. I'm going to say it. I think it's supposed to sound good because general in an army is somebody that's like higher in rank, but general also can mean sort of like basic all purpose as well. And it felt very much like he was saying, this is your basic cannon here. Cannon's kind of, it does what a cannon does. No bells and whistles. You're getting what you expect. It just felt like after all that build up, when he says what the name is, I was like, that's it, really? But it does send the two of them absolutely flying. And then when our friends go out through this like cloud of gas, finally, Nami manages to use her lightning power on these dudes. And it's so funny because when they come out, evidently, Baby Five and Buffalo both think that Law is still on their side. Now, I'm going to be honest and admit something. I thought, as I said last episode, that it had to be Law that she was involved with, that she was yelling at Doflamingo for ruining another love of hers because he was saying that, yeah, we have to take Law out since he's getting in the way of our plans. And so the fact that she and Buffalo are both surprised at the fact that Law is no longer on their side, I was like, have you guys been listening? Why do you think he wanted to kill Law? Like, I guess maybe this does point to all of them being disposable. That him killing Law was just kind of like, I don't know, he wanted to kill him for some reason. It's not a big deal. But it's just funny because evidently he, like, Doflamingo did not share with them or confide to them that this guy has gone off and done his own thing actually for a while now, and we only just became aware of it. So the two of them aren't prepared for Law to be against them, which could have really worked in their favor if things had, like, honestly, even in this moment when they turn around and they're like, Law, what are you doing with them? You're our friend. What he should have done was been like, yeah, you're right, guys. I'm totally with you. And gotten really close and then attacked them when they had their guards down. But instead, he hangs back and tells everybody, like, no, no, no. They're my enemies. And he really just makes it clear. And again, these two are just completely taken off guard by it, which, Doflamingo, you need to get your communication a little bit more right here. Um, so yeah, this is when Nami says, "You think you're getting away? Think again, cowards." And it's her and Usopp. And Usopp even says their backs are to us and they're wounded, which I feel like is supposed to be. It doesn't sound as badass when you say it like that, Usopp, it just sounds like you're pointing out that you fight really dirty. And I don't actually believe this. Just for the record, I think that this is how you should approach it. If people are trying to kill you and then they are injured and they have their backs to you, yes, definitely go ahead and shoot them in the back. But it doesn't sound noble. And maybe that's the point. Maybe I kind of just missed that this was meant to be a little bit more of a joke about him trying to be like a tough guy, but it is really him confessing that he's a bit of a cheap shot. But anyway, yeah. So this is the point where Nami uses her lightning thing and she fries them. And then Buffalo hasn't been quite taken down by that. I think Baby Five that does her, and she's like completely out. There's smoke streaming out of her mouth and stuff. But Usopp follows it up with the rocks, and that finishes off Buffalo. And then we have the Sea Prism Stone cuffs that come out of nowhere and take down Caesar. Now, Caesar, he just plummets to the earth. Is he over the water? I'm trying to remember where he even lands. I forgot about Luffy just going. Yeah, he goes to the water. They all land in the water. That's right. Okay. But Luffy talking to Law and just saying, "Told you, pretty strong, aren't they?" Um, so after after they all land, we have this brief moment of like a weird. I was looking at this like, what is happening here? It looks like fur or something that's waving in the wind. And then we see this like uh group of birds and then Doflamingo. So I'm not sure if Doflamingo is meant to be, it's clearly like his furry jacket that what we were zeroed in on. But I think it's supposed to be that he's like outpacing the birds in his flight or something like that. And he just says, "See you soon." I thought that would be the end of the episode, but it is not. It fades out, and then we cut back to Aokiji, who is fucking out here like on the ocean, and he had been asleep, I guess. He looks around him and he is on this giant bird in the middle of the water. I don't know if this is a boat or a creature. And he just says, "I fell asleep." "Well, no big deal. Which way's Punk Hazard?" And that's the end of the episode. So now we're going to be throwing Aokiji in the mix. Shit is about to get wild. Truly wild. Seraphim is in the chat, says it's a penguin. Okay, because the animation was super weird right there. Gaon Cannon is Oda loving him some puns / onomatopoeia, since it's the Sunny's main weapon that comes from the figurehead's mouth, and Gao is the Japanese onomatopoeia for a lion's roar. Oh, so lion's roar cannon. Oh, that's fun. The General Cannon is a translation thing. The actual name of the mech is the Frankie Shogun, but it gets translated to General Frankie instead, since there really isn't an English equivalent to the title of Shogun. Gotcha. Interesting. Huh. I'd like something like Maverick, maybe. I'm just sort of trying to think of like, you know what I mean? It clearly isn't, the word doesn't mean the same thing, but I'm just trying to think of something that's sort of a bit of a badass vibe. But yeah, all right. I appreciate you, Seraphim, giving me all this info. It's very helpful. So thank you for coming to these. Also, I can't remember. I think I mentioned this in the last episode, but just in case, starting in January, I am going to be, or is it? Well, I think the last like couple of episodes I record before my break at Christmas are the first 2 weeks of December. So technically it'll start then. I'm going to be moving up the recording times for my Spoil Me's. So I will no longer be starting at 4 p.m. Central Time. I will be starting at 2:30 p.m. Because Florian is the one who commissions the most episodes. But his time zone, it makes it really hard for him to come if they're not in the very first slot of the day. And I also am getting to a point where I would like to end earlier in the day. So I asked him about whether this would be easier, and he said yes. So I am moving things up starting the first week of December. I have to wait 3 months before I can make big changes in my schedule like that because of the way the website I use for booking works. So I just wanted to give you all a heads up on that. It'll be earlier, so maybe it's Seraphim has started coming. For a while it was only Florian, and it's so strange because like I had a larger crowd for Spoil Me's for One Piece for a minute, and then everybody sort of vanished. And I think part of that is because I had to change up the session I was using when Crowdcast updated their whole to version 2, and I had to make a new event, and it seems like doing that really like made it like difficult for some people. So I'm hoping that maybe changing up the time slots will make things easier, and I'll be able to see some of y'all again because there's some faces I haven't seen around in a while, and I miss y'all. I really do. Gabriella, where you at, girl? How you doing? Bernadette, I see you in the Discord, but not here often. So yeah, Seraphim is saying, yeah, it took me a while to get things sorted after the update. Exactly. So yeah, I really do miss you guys, and I hope that we all are able to make it back at some point. Okay, I'm gonna wrap. Thank you again, everybody, and until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.